I call the Honourable Philip Goff.
Mr. Speaker, I listened to amazement with the Speaker that couldn't go 3 minutes on this bill out of the 10 minutes allocated when she said that this was a case of the opposition playing politics. I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, who's playing politics. The party that is playing politics is the party that has removed the easy vote provisions designed to make it harder for ordinary people to participate in the political system. That's playing politics. The party that fails to follow the Electoral Commission's advice on removing the coattailing provisions that allows that national party to rort our electoral system for its own self-interest, that's playing politics. Yes. And the third thing about playing politics, Mr. Speaker, is that this bill, in the midst of the scandals enveloping Judith Collins over Aurovita and John Banks over Kim.com, does not do one thing to improve the transparency of money for favours or trying to make our system open, transparent and honest. That party is the party that is playing politics with this system. Mr. Speaker, normally with electoral legislation, we try to deal with it in a different way. We deal with it in a different way because it's fundamental to the operation of democracy, and we deal with it in a different way because this is an instance where legislators are passing laws in which they have vested interests. That can't be avoided, but what you can do, Mr. Speaker, is two things. One, you can endeavour to get bipartisanship, which this government has failed to do, because every party on this side of the House is opposed to the rorting legislation. The second thing you can do is that you can try to get independent and objective advice on the laws that you're passing. That's why we've got the Independent Electoral Commission. So just one national speaker should get to their hind legs and say why the National Party ignored comprehensively the advice of the Independent Electoral Commission when it comes to the rorting of our system through coattailing. And I want to deal with each of those three areas now, Mr. Speaker. First of all, the easy vote card. It was recommended by the Electoral and Justice Committee, chaired by whom? Chaired by Scott Simpson. Scott Simpson, who just spoke as an apologist for the National Minister of Justice, Judith Collins, stripping out the easy vote provisions, actually chaired the committee that recommended in the first instance that the easy vote system was good and should be extended. But it's not all Scott Simpson's fault. He's just a pawn. He does what his minister tells him. The minister, in her first reading speech on this very bill, said that putting in the easy vote provisions was an important change in this legislation. That's what Judith Collins said in the first reading. And now she's stripped it out, Mr. Speaker, and they haven't given a single rational justification why they're making it harder for people to cast a vote. Scott Simpson talked about fraud, but in his committee's report, he said electoral fraud is dealt with efficiently. It's very rare, 0.01%, and we find the people, they lose their vote, and if they're of compos mentis, they're prosecuted for doing it. No excuse at all, Mr. Speaker. You know the real excuse, the real reason why National has stripped out the easy vote provisions? The National Party has close connections with the right wing of the Republican Party. They're called the Tea Party. National and the Tea Party are just like this, Mr. Speaker, and the Tea Party learned one thing. The more that people participate in the vote, the worse the result it is for right-wing Conservative organisations. Listen to that again, Scott Simpson. The more people who participate, the worse the result for the National Party. And that is why they've stripped it out. They aren't interested in widespread participation in the electoral system. They're interested in stopping people from voting and only allowing the wealthy and the powerful and those they influence to vote. That's why they've stripped out the easy vote provisions that were originally put into this legislation. And, Mr. Speaker, that, frankly, is a disgrace. The second thing, Mr. Speaker, is the failure to adopt the Electoral Commission's recommendations on coattailing. Coattailing is what happens when a party doesn't reach the 5% threshold, but they get one MP elected in an electoral seat. and that allows them to bring in more members of their party as MPs proportionate to their vote. Now, that's all very well, but for one thing. The National Party discovered how they could rort this system. The seat of Epsom is a safe Tory seat. It doesn't come any safer. And in each of the last 3 elections, they have gifted that seat to the right-wing extreme party in this parliament, the ACT Party, so that they can coattail other MPs in. That's right. And I'll tell you something, Mr Speaker, it's not just the Electoral Commission that said that that was a disgrace, that it shouldn't happen. The public in every single public opinion poll has rejected coattailing comprehensively. Rejected it comprehensively, yet the National Party persists in allowing it to happen because it legalises the rort in the political system that enables them to cling on to power. That's why they ignored the Independent Electoral Commission, Mr Speaker, and frankly, that also is a disgrace. The third thing is the lack of transparency over donations. Mr Speaker, in any political system, you have to worry when political parties and politicians get donations, particularly big donations from wealthy vested interests. That then distorts the system, and the party reflects the interests of the few rather than the interests of the many. Now, we've seen that happen. The National Party operates something called the Waitemata Trust. The Waitemata Trust money launders millions of dollars into the National Party's coffers in a way that you cannot tell where that money came from. Mr Speaker, do you know what percentage of donations to the National Party are identified by the donor? It's 7%. 93% of the donors to the National Party are hidden because the National Party knows who they are and that they will return the favour, but the public doesn't know and they can't scrutinise what the National Party is doing, why and for whom. That is a disgrace. There was one occasion in which the National Party was transparent. They didn't mean to be. It was called the Don Brash email leaks. The whole of the then leader of the National Party's correspondence was leaked, I think by Bill English actually, whom he deposed, leaked to the media, and we saw for the first time what was happening in the National Party. Let me read one tiny extract from a book called The Hollow Men, which is authenticated by the emails that were leaked. Listen to this, Mr Speaker, talking about the National Party. The party was not only secretive and deceptive about its election finances, some of its activities appear to have breached both the electoral laws and the parliamentary spending rules, and it seems to have been a party to others' breaches of election legislation. The National Party, time and again, rort the public because they pretend to represent the average New Zealander, but they're funded by the most wealthy people in this country and they return the favour. That's what Orovida is about. That's why the Minister of Justice is in trouble right now in the House today. That's why John Banks from the ACT Party is being prosecuted under the electoral law provisions of this country. A lack of transparency. They know where they got the money from, but they don't want the public to know. And that, Mr Speaker, is an absolute disgrace. So in summary, what we see in this bill is a lack of transparency, no ability to scrutinise what the wealthy and the powerful get in return for their donations. We have a lack of integrity, the removal of the easy vote card designed to increase public participation and make democracy stronger. We see also a failure to adopt a provision that would stop the rorting of our democratic system. Mr Speaker, we expected so much from this bill. We were prepared to work with the National Party to get good electoral legislation to strengthen democracy, but there is no way that this Labor Party can support what the National Party is doing in this legislation, which is not about the good operation of democracy, but it's about rorting the system so the National Party can increase its grip on power. That is a disgrace.
I call the honourable member Alfred
Mr. Speaker, it's
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Mr. Speaker.